Welcome everybody to the Heart Coherence Collaborative. Today we're so excited to have our good friend Paul Selig back with us.
Yes, returning again. You're one of our favorites, our group's favorites, and our favorites. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so today we have a little special edition interview where we're going to dive into the heart. This is the 30-day Summer of Love Heart Coherence Challenge. So we'd love to ask you, Paul, first. I've heard you talk about love and what love is and what it isn't. So could you start there?
Oh, I'm not a spiritual teacher. My guides teach, and they have things to say about these things. I can interpret their work, which I often have to do in situations where people are asking questions. They don't talk about love as a feeling. They talk about it as a level of vibration and consciousness that you can align to and be in and of, an aspect of the creator. I mean, they talk about God, you can call it whatever you want, but then they speak a lot about, divine love, which I suspect is different than many of the things we think of as love. Oh, I love those shoes, or I love that type of man or woman, or I love that movie. And what we've sort of done is reduce the idea of love to preference. And I think love is something far more powerful and frankly far more experiential to be in and as and with and in alignment to.
Thank you.
But that's my take. Who knows what they want to say about it, or if they want.
I will ask him later.
What do the guides say about when you're really far away from love, when you're in anger, when you're in hate?
They don't talk about it as far away from love. And I know that there are teachings that say that there is only love and there is fear. I don't know that the guides would disagree with that, but they speak about it, I think, in some different ways. And they talk about everything being of one source. The guides say there is one note sung in the entire universe that is in manifestation as all things, and everything operates in a spectrum of tone or vibration. So low vibration, is the absence of the divine, or the belief in the absence of the divine, because they say God, if there is one, and they say that there is, must be all things, inclusive of in the darkness. It is we who deny source and consequently align at the lower levels. So the idea for me of things existing in a spectrum of high and low is actually very, very useful once I begin to understand it, because it takes me out of this dualism of good and evil and right and wrong. And, the guides have said for years, in truth, a lie will not be held. And in the higher level of resonance or tone, what is not in alignment to that must fall away, which is in many ways where they're taking their students now in their teachings, to a level of recognition of their innate self, their innate divinity or innocence or love, which actually claims for you all things that are in alignment to it. So you align to the higher, and you're not really operating in the same subjective idea that you've been trained in. This is a good thing, this is a bad thing. Many of those things are actually preferences. This is a better house, it's more expensive, perhaps it's better built, but we don't think in those terms, So again, this isn't what they speak to necessarily directly, so I'm trying to interpret your questions as perhaps they do.
Yeah. So it seems like they say a lot about how loving should be towards all things, not just specifically your partner or things like that. And, a lot of my journey is kind of trying to just recognize areas where I'm selfish versus more connected towards others. Have they ever talked about a correlation between selflessness and being connected to the divine?
Well, yeah, but not in those terms. They don't talk about selflessness. They do talk a lot about expression and service.
Right.
Now, the guides talk about, they call it the personality structure of the small self. And they say that the small self knows itself through historical data, history, what it's accrued. This is what a good job is, this is what a bad job is, this is what you should aspire to or what you should not. Most of those things are structures that we've moved into an accord with, and we create a reality through them. So if I can remember your question before I just sidetracked it, The idea of service, which is action on behalf of others, is party to their teaching. But we also live in a culture where we've sort of decided that it's what we do. So I'm a Reiki master, I'm in service. Well, and I always say this, the woman who's working the crossing guard at the school may be the most evolved person in the neighborhood, for all we know. And so we tend to accrue evidence of things that we deem are spiritual or should be spiritual. And in fact, your whole life is your expression. How you show up for work, how you make love, how you take care of business of the day, all of those things are expressions of your true self and can be operating at that level if you align to them as such. So if you think of selfishness, I know what I want and I have to get there first, or somebody else is going to get there, that's the old paradigm. And many of the teachings I've received about separation, which they say is an illusion, but that we perpetuate, so we make it very real for ourselves, is born in the premise of lack. There will not be enough, I have to get there first. My partner can only love me and nobody else. And all of that stuff is small self stuff,
Do they talk about how to get into alignment with the higher vibrations or the true?
Yeah. That's the entirety of their teachings. There's now the 11th book is coming out soon. This is really what they've been teaching from the beginning. And they've been doing it in stages and in increments. So part of this has to do with a process that they call rearticulation, or realizing who in fact you truly are at the cost of the idea of who you are. So I can say, at one level, it's true that I'm a man and that I'm of a certain age and that I live in a certain place and I have a certain ethnicity, and all of those things are true at one level, but they're not who I am. They're ways that I experience myself. And the divine self, or the true self, expresses beyond those ideas. It can utilize those ideas. It doesn't walk around pretending that I'm, from another culture than I am, or of a different age than I am. But the divine self, they say, actually is eternal. The God within is eternal. It's not afraid. It's not jealous. It's not small-minded. It's not self-righteous. The divine within you doesn't hold those things because it's not been indoctrinated into them as we have through our cultures and our bias and what we think is right or should be what we need. So their teaching of alignment in many ways is aligning to the divine self. They call it the monad sometimes. Sometimes they call it the Christed self or the eternal self. And that process, they say, re-engages us beyond the lower level crap that we self-identified through, and all of our shoulds and I should be and I should have and all of those things. And I have to say, I don't claim to be ascended or a spiritual teacher. I'm not, I'm this guy with this particularly odd ability to take this dictation, and I show up for it regularly. But I do know that my life has changed enormously as a result of this. I'm not as afraid. I'm not as, prideful, jealous, all those things that perhaps I was and can be still if I get triggered. And if I do get triggered, that just means there's more work to be done, and I have an opportunity to see where my bias is, or where I have an investment in being perceived or getting in a certain way through an old way of knowing myself.
I'm curious, have you ever asked the guides specific questions on the heart before?
I'll ask them now and see if they want to say anything. If people haven't heard me channel, I whisper the words and repeat them. It's clumsy and awkward, but that's how it happens. The idea of the heart is what you're talking about. They're saying the idea of the heart is what you're talking about. The heart is a metaphor. The heart is a metaphor, not the physical heart, not the physical heart. Now the heart holds vibration. Now the heart holds vibrations within the heart. And within the heart, the seed of God is present. The seed of God is present. This is not the physical heart, but this is not the physical heart. It's the etheric heart. It is the etheric heart that is experienced at the level of the heart center, that is experienced at the level of the heart center. Your heart chakra, if you wish, is not the physical heart, is not not the physical heart. When you use the word of the body, when you use the word of a body, what do you really mean? What do you really mean? Are you asking people to understand the physical heart? Are you asking people to understand the physical heart and how the blood pumps through the systems and how the blood pumps through the systems? Are you inviting them to know themselves? Are you inviting them to know themselves as of the whole, with the heart as the center, with the heart as the center, the aspect of you that indeed may know, and claim divinity and invoke its presence and invoke its presence through a higher alignment and will, through a higher alignment and will. We will answer these questions if you wish. We will answer these questions if you wish when you speak in metaphor, but when you speak in metaphor and you confuse them with yourself and you confuse them with the physical self, you confuse the teaching, you confuse the teaching. When we speak of heart, we talk about a level of centeredness, we talk about a level of centeredness or relational sense, the divine self in the heart, the divine self in the heart, the spark in the heart, the spark in the heart. We're not speaking about the blood, but we are not speaking about the blood or the tissue, but the spiritual heart, that is present in all, period. And they're saying period.
Perfect. It's a great way to start the conversation.
Yeah, so I would like to ask, is it easier to connect to the divine through thought or through this divine heart that might be tied to emotion?
Well, I don't know that it's, I mean, I think you can do this. I don't know that emotion is tied to the heart. I really don't. I think emotion, we have a spiritual body, and we have an emotional body. And when I step into people, which is what I do as a psychic, and I feel what it feels like to be them, I'm accessing information in different ways. Much of it is emotional, but that's only one level. There's an aspect of you and me and all of us that knows. So the true self, the guides say, knows, is in cognizance or clear cognizance, true knowing. And the small self, which is the egoic structure, thinks. And there's nothing wrong with thinking. I need to read the recipe to bake a cake. I've never baked a cake before. It would be smart to read the recipe. I don't know that I'm going to come to my knowing. But in terms of spiritual awareness, for me, it was not intellectual, and it's still not. The guides write books through me, and the guides say the books work on two levels. They're the words in the page, which provide an intellectual context for the reader, sort of a map for where they're going, but that the real teaching is the energy that's encoded in the language. Is the book itself is a vibrational teaching, and that's experiential or felt. I don't know that when something is felt, it's necessarily felt emotionally. When I stand outside on a windy day, I'm feeling the breeze. I may have an emotional reaction to the breeze. Oh, that breeze reminds me of that time I got stuck outside the car and it was too windy and I thought I would die. I can go there with that, but in fact, the feeling of the presence of Source can have emotion attached to it. But I think that's our stuff too. I had a friend, I was a dear friend once, who I read for years ago. And as I was reading, should I tell this story? Probably not. They're saying I'm not going to tell the story. But I felt in the reading this influx of energy. And I'm going, what the hell is this? And then the next day he called me and said, I woke up in the middle of the night and I felt this influx of energy that you were describing. And, but I was also seeing a painting behind him when I was reading him. And I was just, on the phone. I wasn't seeing the guy. And it was a painting of, I think, of a Saint Teresa, I think it was, in ecstasy, sort of bearing her bosom in rapture, almost sensual rapture. And it turned out, and I'm thinking, well, what's this energy? But it turned out that was the painting that was on the wall in his office. He had a painting of that. So it was like so interesting to me. And I think people speak about religious ecstasy as something, whatever we want to equate ecstasy to be. But I think there are many ways to experience Source, and we can have our own reactions to him, So I don't know that I'm answering this at all, but it's kind of what I think. I think you can pursue anything intellectually, and maybe you'll find the combination lock or the code to open a door, or perhaps something in what you read will propel you to a new awareness, which can be spirit. And I think spirit works through all of us. and in all ways. I mean, I've told this story before, but you know, at the very end of my drinking days, I was 25, and I was in a hotel room in St. Paul working on a project in this Gopher Campus Motor Lodge, you know, and the Gideons leave books in the drawers, you know, and it's like, I'm not a Bible guy. I certainly wasn't, you know, but I was in a bad moment, and I knew whatever I was going through wasn't getting better. I don't know that I could have named it. But I said, I opened the book, it said prayer for people in crisis. I said, well, that's me. And I said it. And for whatever reason, that changed everything. And 3 days later, I heard a voice. But I also know that I had asked for help. And then the help came. You know, if I hadn't have asked for the help, I don't know that I would have heard it, the voice, because I believe we have free will. And, you know, if I want to keep hurting myself, I have the right to do that, but I asked for it and I got it. So whatever propelled me to say the prayer was within the heart. But my experience of the prayer primarily was intellectual. I understood the words that I was saying and I agreed that I meant them. And then I let it go. And when I heard the voice 3 days later telling me to get my act together and explicitly what to do, and that wasn't a voice in the room, it was a voice in my head that blocked out all other thoughts, that had a very distinct truth to it that I couldn't deny, which is why I acted on it. I was operating in a very different way, and in my knowing, there was not an emotional response to that at all. I just knew that I had to follow what I was being told. So that's it.
Thank you very much. And I'm glad the guides cleared up, you know, the physical heart versus the heart chakra. And what we are speaking of here is the heart chakra that they referenced. I'm wondering if they have ever mentioned if there's a connection between the heart chakra being open and being able to access the upper room.
Yes and no. It's far easier when the heart is open. It's far easier when the heart is open. You can enter the upper room, but you can enter the upper room and allow the heart to be open there and allow the heart to be open there. You can't do the surgery on yourself. You see, you can't do the surgery on yourself. You see, you have to invoke the potential. It may be so. You have to invoke the potential that it may be so. In other words, you can move to Paris. In other words, you can move to Paris and not know the language and not know the language. You can learn the language there, or you can learn the language there and be a happier man as a result, and be a happier man as a result.
Wow. 10-4.
Could they talk about the field around the heart?
So your whole energy system holds a resonance. Each chakra holds a different tone. Each chakra holds a different tone. When the systems are balanced, you have one experience. You have one experience. When they're not, you have imbalance. When you're not, you have imbalance or disruption, which may result in different things, When we teach through Paul, we teach in a very specific way. The authors of the text, we are the authors of the text. And we have a distinct way of teaching. Much of what passes for spiritual discussion is actually broader in its implications than you are aware of, You have no real understanding. Of the chakra system. The best that you can do is rest on those whose experience of them, in teaching was useful and made it available to others, What is far more important than our teaching? Is your own experience, The resonance of the energetic field at the level of love, transforms all it encounters, And that much we will say, When the heart is open, you fall in love with all things. The whole world is different. Because you're operating in a different vibrational field, because you are operating in a different vibrational field, period. And they're saying period. So I think they've used the word chakra 3 times in all the years I've worked with them, and I think today was one of them. So, they call them energy centers for the most part, but that's not really what they speak to.
Yeah, so I like what they said about it's personal to you and what you need to do to change your vibration. And for me personally, when I harmonize my heart and brain, it allows me to feel the vibrations that I think allow me to connect with spirit, which
That sounds right.
Yeah. And
It's a
for
lot
you,
easier.
it might be different.
I think it is a lot easier. I mean, honestly, but I have to say this. I came into my own spiritual awareness at one of the worst periods of my life that lasted for quite some years. And it's part of what kept me on a path. Was all I knew was, I knew this stuff was real because I'd had a couple of experiences of it, which blew everything else out of the water. And now I really didn't know what to do, because the life that I was living suddenly wasn't the life that I expected to be living. And my sense of what I could do or be or have in the world was screwed up and altered in really direct ways. But I do know that it's a lot easier to have a spiritual life, or a productive, happy one. I'll just say happy one, when you're not worried about where your next meal is coming from. And I've been there. I know that other place of being. It's hard to be in survival. So I think everything is usable and nothing is outside of God. And some people have to fall through a trap door. There's that old Leonard Cohen song, you're probably too young to remember Leonard Cohen, called Suzanne. And he was a Buddhist, but he wrote this song. And or mystic, I think he was a mystic. But in this song, Suzanne, there's a line where he says, "And Jesus was a sailor when he walked upon the water, and he spent a long time watching from his lonely wooden tower. And when he knew for certain only drowning men could see him, he said, all men will be sailors then, until the sea shall free them." And that's opening for many people. I don't know that people go for this stuff because everything's going so well and you're getting everything you want. Sometimes it's when the shit hits the fan that you have to reassess what you thought was important or how life could be lived. And that's my case. Maybe it doesn't have to be for other people. I pray that it's easier for other people than it was for me, because mine was a pain in the ass. Mine was hard, but I think I also had an investment in things being difficult because it made it more real.
Yeah.
I'm a hardy traveler. Other people maybe don't have to be.
Yeah.
What's the place of romantic love in the soul's journey?
I'll tell you when I find it. How about that? I'm still waiting. Let me see. Through these things, the soul may learn through these things. The predisposition to hold a relationship, maybe in the soul's field, maybe in the soul's field, and the soul attractive presence, and the soul will attract what it requires to learn and demonstrate through intimate relationships. Intimate relationships are great teachers, You learn who you are, and how you treat others and how you treat others, and you learn what you can hold, and you learn what you can hold or demand or expect that is out of alignment, with the other's nature or truth, When you understand symbiosis, or working together in a common way, you will understand this more. However you particularize it, when the whole world becomes your lover, when all men are in love, when all men are in love, all women are in love, all women are in love with one another, you will actually know truth. You make romantic love distinct. When the romance fades, and when the romance fades, you get divorced, and then you go, what was that about? And what was that about? True love expresses beyond singularity, beyond the idea of partnership, and even beyond the idea of gender, who should be loved and who should not, or who should be loved and who should not. To know true love is to know God's presence, is to know God's presence. It's God that loves through each of you. It is God that loves through each of you. It is not the personality self. It is not the personality self, which may hold desire or attraction, and work with that, and learn through those things, There's nothing wrong with those things. There is nothing wrong with those things. You're allowed to enjoy pleasure. You're allowed to enjoy pleasure. You're allowed to enjoy joy. You're allowed to enjoy joy in the form you've taken, in the form that you have taken. But when you truly love another, you are selfless. You are selfless because love is not selfish. Because love is not selfish. Period. Period.
Great. So we have a lot of people right now coming together to do this challenge where they're going to go into the Heart Center for 30 days and feel things like gratitude, appreciation. Really, what they're going to do is spend 30 days trying to become the best version of themselves. So I was wondering if the guides have any message to just people that are just literally out there right now trying to become the best version of themselves.
Well, I have to say, I hate the phrase "the best version of themselves."
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's something that one tries to get. And that is not about self-acceptance or self-love. It's usually about fixing things. And the guide said through me, the very first book, this is not a self-help book. This is a book where you journey to another way of being. Now, I think it is fine when to aspire to things, to aspire to have a healthy body, to aspire to study a subject and learn through it, but not at the cost of an understanding of who one is. I used to be very, very heavy. I'm not right now. I was as good a human being then as I am now. I have a different experience of being in the world, which is a happier and easier one and a far healthier one at this time. But the idea of getting what I want, if I were to get what I want, I would have been dead by 30. There is no question in my mind about that. You know, and some of what I had to learn in my path was letting myself discover what was necessary for my growth, letting myself be in the experience of being alive and not knowing. So I'm going to go to the guides with the idea of the best version and see what they want to say, because they just refute everything that I just said. Not really. They're saying not really. We take exception. No, we take exception to several things you said. To several things you said. The idea of self-improvement is useful. The idea of self-improvement is useful, but it holds a bias. But it holds a bias through cultural dictates and norms. Through cultural dictates and norms. My best version of myself. My best version of myself makes 7 figures. Makes 7 figures. My best version of myself. My best version of myself has the nicest house. Has the nicest house on the block. These are atrocities. These are atrocities. These are things you experience. These are things you can experience or learn through, but they're not the reason you're here. But they are not the reason you're here. Your home is where you express. Your home is where you express. When your expression demands a greater home, when your expression demands a greater home, perhaps you will discover it. Perhaps you will discover it. It will align to you, or it will align to you because it's a requirement for your growth. A requirement for growth is interesting. A requirement for growth is interesting. Someone's requirement for growth. Someone's requirement for growth may be living in a field, may be living in a field, in a small tent for a period of time, to disengage from the idea of what a life should look like, The one who's always been married, the one who has always been married and finds herself unmarried has a great opportunity to discover solitude, and the peace may be discovered there, and the peace that may be discovered there. But she may seek the old relationship, for fear of being left alone again, Your idea of what you should have is confused. If you truly wish to align, to your highest and best, do so without deciding what that must look like, you would indeed shortchange yourselves.
I think I would like to rephrase the question. So basically, our group is going to spend the next 30 days learning to love who they truly are.
Great.
What advice would the guides have for this group?
That's great. That's a really good question. I'd like to be in that group. Let me see. To understand that everything that you've done has been part of your learning. To understand that everything that you choose takes you to the next place you stand, takes you to the next place you stand, and how you choose, and awareness of one's true needs, and an awareness of one's true needs will call you to the highest, will call you to the highest. Everything you should be, not where you think you should be, but where your heart calls you, which is another way of saying where your true knowing takes you, If you take the word heart, and move it to true knowing, and allow true knowing to be your lead, and allow true knowing to be your lead, you'll be blessed every step of the way. Period. I'm saying period.
Thank you for that recorrection. I really like that.
I don't know it was a correction, but it's what, I don't know. I'm an old curmudgeon, and I have a certainly not disagreeing with what you're saying. Some of it was semantics. You know, when I do a lot of live streams and things like that. And people say, well, I'm a Reiki master and I'm a this and I'm a that and I'm a mother and I'm a this, but how do I serve? Well, the guides have said how one serves is how one is most fully expressed as their true self. And that can be the hands-on work. It can be the parenting. In fact, it's everything that we do. We tend to separate our idea of our spiritual lives from the rest of our life. And in fact, your life is your spiritual life, and your life is the expression of your consciousness. That's what it is. Okay. Question.
All of the last questions have reminded me that there's this balance when you're trying to change or maybe get healthier, to be in that process while still having self-acceptance and self-love. So could the guides talk about the balance of change?
Well, if I say I love myself enough not to take crap anymore, or I care for myself enough to take care of the body that I've been gifted to be in, or if I care for myself enough to tell the truth even when it's not going to be convenient to what I want in terms of outcome. There are different ways. You know, I'm a slow learner, and I don't know that I really understood ever until maybe a couple of years ago, or the beginning of it, at least, because I'm still at the beginning of it, that self-love really was about self-care. It wasn't a feeling. You know, I couldn't easily say that I loved myself. I can easily say now I care for myself and I care about myself. And I can also say that I am being loving to myself. In other words, I am treating myself as I would treat someone who I care about and love, or learning to. The idea that I didn't get it, which I really didn't, was a source of shame for me for years. What are they talking about? Love yourself. What the hell is that about? What does that mean? And like a lot of things with love in the title, it can become a platitude, a meme. It can become a saying, a Hallmark card, which has nothing to do with love. It's a lowered expression of an idea, of a sentiment. And I think being sentimental is not being in loving. Being sentimental is something else. I remember having to tell somebody something that I needed, that was uncomfortable, that was not what he was going to want to hear, you know. And I had to summon my courage and march up to this person and say, you know, when you do this, it makes me feel like that. And he was like, oh, okay, got it. And he did get it. And I reported it to someone that I trust. And she said, congratulations, that's self-love. And I went, oh, that's self-love? And she said, yeah, that was an act of self-love. And it really was. And I got it. In that moment, I got it. You know, I think I had in its place, I'm not that much of a people pleaser. I learned love, if it's something that can be learned, or I understood love, which is a better way of saying it, not through a devotional practice. I was a college teacher for many years, and I was like 25 when I started doing that. And I showed up in this room with these kids, 18 to 22 or whatever they were, that were more scared than I was, that I was able to be with. And over the years, I learned that it was love, that I was there to love. And that was not a love that required anything back from them. They didn't have to agree with me. They didn't have to adore me. Certainly, I didn't see any of them beyond the classroom, except the ones over the years that, you know, stayed in touch with me on social media, which is very sweet. I'm happy to know that they're alive and doing their work in the world. But I realized years later that teaching was my spiritual practice. It was about showing up for somebody else from a place of integrity, I hope, that I really did work with that intentionally. And that's just being honest, not having to be seen a certain way, not seeking to be the expert, but saying, I don't know when I don't know, and the best I can offer you is. But that's where I learned it. And I used to say about halfway through the school year, because I had this one class, I taught it for 20 plus years, and it met like 5 hours a week. So that's a lot of time to spend with a group of, say, 12, 14 people. And about halfway through the year, there would be this moment when the whole class would fall in love with each other. And it was remarkable to watch. And I saw such kindness and caring among these people for each other. And that's not how we all showed up in the room. Everybody showed up very protected and very, I told this story recently, and it's a silly one, but it's when I got it, you know, when I think I have great hope for future generations. You know, my generation was the yuppies. It was all about careerism and all those things, and that's dating me. And I remember teaching a class at NYU in a theater space, and some kid got up on stage with a folder of his script. I think he had a script that he was going to read from, and dropped it, and the papers went all over the place. And the kid just sort of, in front of the whole freshman class, was like, and without saying a word, all the kids in the first row got out of their seats, climbed up on the stage, and picked up this kid's paper for him. And they gave it to him, and then that was it. And I went, wow. Nobody snickered. Nobody shamed him. And it was loving. It was a simple, simple act of respect and love. And I think love and respect have to go hand in hand. You know, the guides have said for years, who you put in darkness, what you put in darkness calls you to the darkness. It's such a simple teaching. What you damn damns you back. And if I want to feel better or more superior than someone, I can have that. I can have it at the cost of a lot of other things, though. And that's not to say I'm not an athlete. I'm not 6'4". I'll probably never be drafted for a basketball team. You know, it's not going to happen. That doesn't mean I can't enjoy basketball. You know, it doesn't mean that I don't have a right to be here. People have different skill sets, different gifts in a lifetime, different ways of expressing themselves. And that's part of the wonderfulness of being individuated consciousness. You know, we're all of source, but we express in different ways. So I understand when the guides are teaching about love being universal, you know, or, you know, love as God loves, you know. When I was in my early 12-step days, the people in recovery used to say to me, because I was really damaged, they used to say, look for the good of the God in everyone. Simple, 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 and a high spiritual advice. And the true spiritual truths are always simple and always enactable, you know.
You think it's a true statement that the love that you condition also is like the love that you'll be conditioned in return?
Well, it's all about co-resonance. But if I'm loving someone in the expectation that I'm going to be loved the way I think I should, I'm not loving them at all. I'm making a depend on them. You know, yeah. That's just the fallacy. I mean, you can love someone and you love them, but if I love them because they're going to do what I want, I don't really love them. You know, and that doesn't mean that people don't challenge. I have plenty of people that challenge me. I'm sure I challenge plenty of people too. And there are people in my life that I do love, and I do feel or experience that I am loved by. And that's even when I'm being an ass or saying something stupid or being selfish. And unfortunately, these people love me enough to say, Paul, you're being an ass. You know, I don't know. I don't think that love requires a return. I do think that in co-resonance, and we're always in expression, which is our energetic field, is always calling things back to us. So you start attracting the higher when you align to the higher.
I love that. That's a great theme to set out for this challenge, just to love unconditionally. And, you know, one question I have is because I do have a lot of friends that I am observing that they're really stuck in a very strong loop of self-centered struggle. It's like, it's painful, you know, when you were struggling back in the day with addiction, and it's just so heavy that it feels like a life of service is miles away. What's the first step? You know, what's the first step for my friends?
I'll tell you what my old shrink, Hurricane Harriet, said to me back in I was 27 when I got dropped in her office. You're like, you take him. He's too messed up. And she was a great, tough old broad. And she said to me, do something nice, do something good for somebody every day and don't tell anybody about it. There's a bee in my room. I live in the jungle. So if I jump up, edit this on film, I don't want to get stung on camera, okay? Yeah, do something good for somebody else every day and don't say anybody about it. It's really like, it's going to be in camera in a minute.
Oh, it is. It made the cameo.
It is. It's a big one. I got to get up.
Yeah, you can go do your thing.
On the
We can edit
computer,
this out and come back.
Literally on the computer, and it's coming at me. Sorry, guys.
No, take your
Okay.
time. It's
No,
funny.
it's like
Your dog's been making a cameo the entire time in the back, which
dog is great.
amazing.
Bees I don't mind. Bees I don't love. Usually,
Dog's got a great strut.
hovering by the outside door. You will cut this, right?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
yes, yes.
Good.
Start again with the answer.
All right. I'm going to try to sit back, but this may happen again. All right. Want to ask the question again?
Yeah. So the question was, okay.
So we're gonna cut this back in. So we'll just start from like a neutral position because sometimes it's hard to cut it back in.
Okay.
So ready?
Yeah. So, I have a lot of friends right now that are struggling deeply in what seems like self-centered fear. And it seems so heavy. And I feel sad for them. And I would love to be able to offer them advice, like a first step they can take to really reaching the other side where they feel comfortable being of service. But to them right now, it feels so far away.
Well, keep it simple. Don't try to be of world service when you can't get your act together. World service is a high, lofty goal. But, if somebody's hungry, feed them. I mean, it's what my old shrink, Hurricane Harriet, used to say to me when I was a kid. Do something good for somebody every day and don't tell anybody about it. No humble bragging. You know what I mean? Well, that wasn't a phrase in those days, but she was right. You just do something, real simple stuff, real simple stuff. Self-esteem comes from esteemable acts. It's not how you present to the world or how you say things. It's how you show up and take care of yourself or take care of business. It took me a long time, really. I'm 61 years old now. I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life, but it took a long time. It was not an easy path. It's been a hard one. And I think, you can choose a spiritual path or be chosen by it. It doesn't really matter to me. But no matter whatever you've come to learn, you're going to run into on the way. This isn't an easy way out. It is a way, I believe, to comprehend peace or to know peace or to be at peace. And maybe not all the time, because I don't know that life works that way. I don't. And I don't know that it's supposed to. The guys once said, if you want to be happy all the time, there's a pill for that now, if that's what you want. But I also know that the greatest growth I've come to have been through the most challenging periods of my life. And I'm grateful for them only in hindsight. And also, I never want to live through them again.
Yeah.
I have a say in that. Who wants it? Who wants pain? I don't go looking for pain anymore. So I'm going to go to the guides on how does someone who's struggling take a first step towards service. Trust that God is present where it doesn't appear to be, where it doesn't appear to be. Trust that you are known, your needs are known. Trust that you are known, and then your needs are known, even when it doesn't seem to be, even when it doesn't seem to be. And then take the next step, and then take the next step in a prayerful way, I'm not alone. I am not alone. I am learning what I need as I go. I am learning what I need as I go. I am not alone. I am not alone. I am learning what I need as I go. I am learning what I need as I go. Each step will bring you closer to what you need. Each step will bring you closer to what you need if you work in this way, if you work in this way, period. That's wasn't what I was expecting to hear, but that's what they said.
Yeah, and I think we're going to add to our challenge, do something good for someone else every day and don't tell anybody. I think that would be really cool.
Nice one.
Yeah.
Hurricane Harriet Warfield. She's been dead for many years. I've been told by mediums, she's come through in a couple of readings with other people. I said, oh, your old therapist, Harriet's here. It's like, and I hear that she listens in when I teach because I reference her, and I hear that she likes it. She likes that I remember.
Oh,
but
wow. There's just counting crescents right now. It's like I'm getting tears coming. So
I think that would be great to do
Yeah.
as a little thing for a challenge.
But you can't tell anybody, whatever you
That's
do.
the trick.
Don't go telling everybody. We know you'll want to, but don't do that.
I would love if the guides might have an attunement for a group in this process of, might be just aligning with our true selves.
They're saying the idea of who you are must be addressed. You are not who you think you are, nor will you ever be, nor will you ever be. Thought is an idea. Thought is an idea of who you should be, of who you should be. Will sometimes offer you opportunity to learn and grow, but to understand yourself. But to understand yourself in a true way is to align to the heart, is to align to the heart, or true knowing, or the God within, or the God within. You may say these words if you wish. You may say these words if you wish. I know who I am in truth. I know what I am in truth. I know how I serve in truth. I am free. I am free. I am free. What you are free of is the idea. What you are free of is the idea that you are not who you think you are, that you are not who you think you are. What you are free of, what you are free is the truth of your being as may be known in a higher way, What does that mean? What does that mean? You're free of that. You're free of that. Once you experience yourself as free, once you experience yourself as free, the idea of being is altered. The idea of being is altered. To be free is to be unencumbered by the ideas you've held, is to be unencumbered by the ideas you have held that keep you in separation, keep you in fear, keep you in lack, and keep you in lack. I know who I am. I know who I am. I know what I am. I know what I am. I know how I serve. I know how I serve. I am free. I am free. The true self you must understand. The true self you must understand is always free, and this is always true. And this is always true at the level of the true self, It knows who it is. It knows who it is. It knows what it is. It knows what it is. It knows how it serves. It knows how it serves, period. And they're saying period.
Right as you did that, it started pouring rain.
There we go.
Yeah, and I would love any advice. I know really through our conversations, themes develop of our challenges. It's like these challenges that we do, it starts with heart coherence, but that's kind of just like the framework, and then we build off of that. And one thing I really want to focus on throughout this challenge, just based off of this conversation, is loving people unconditionally, loving all things unconditionally. Is there any more advice from you or the guides to cement that in for this 30 days?
Start by accepting, start by accepting people as they are, not as you think they should be, and that's a pain in the butt. But really, keep it simple, and the simplest way is who you damn or who you put in darkness calls you to the darkness or damns you back. They're not doing it intentionally. That's the level of vibration that you're aligning to. You go, that person should die tomorrow. You're aligned at that level of consciousness. To let somebody go isn't to make what they did right or wrong. It's simply to allow them to be as they are. You can make your own choices about how to be with them. But it's kind of simple, really. We live in a world where people get harmed or murdered, and people say, well, blessings and prayers to the families. That means nothing unless it's done. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's sanctimonious crap. What a blessing is, in my opinion, or what the guides have said, and I agree, what a blessing is the realization of the presence of Source where it has been denied. Seeing God or knowing that God must be there in that darkness. Because if we don't, we just empower the darkness more and more and more. And that doesn't mean that you don't do anything if there's something to be done, or you don't take an action to help the world become a safer, healthier, better place. You can. But much of what we do is in polarization. Those people don't have the right to exist. Well, it's a bunch of, it's ridiculous what we do. So start by accepting or allowing people that they have the right to be. The guides have said many times, whoever you are, you have a right to be. You were born, you have a right to be. Done. Start there. Then work your way up. Work your way up. There's a beautiful short story that I'm going to recommend from my old days as a teacher that I loved, by a writer named Carson McCullers. And it was called A Tree, a Rock, a Cloud. And it's the story of this paper boy that goes in to drink his morning coffee with like the adult miners in this rural coffee shop. And he sits next to this old man who tells him the theory of love. And he said after his wife left him, he couldn't love anything and anybody ever again. And he began with a tree and a rock and then a cloud. And then he worked his way up to people. But he understood the science of love. And it's true, keep it simple. Don't make it a grand gesture. Let love work through you, you know.
You complete?
I feel complete.
Paul, how can we support you? How can our followers support you? I know you have some amazing events that you keep doing. What's the best way for our group to plug into those? Because they are amazing.
Thank you. My website, which is Paul Selig, SELIG.com. I do a live stream intensive pretty much every month, and I do a weekly teaching on Wednesday nights, Wednesday night Eastern time. It's morning for me here in Hawaii, or early afternoon. And I do a lot of live events again. I'm traveling again. So there's a calendar. I'm going to be in the West Coast, in New England. I'm going to be in Costa Rica. I'm going to be, you know, here and there. So check the calendar. And if I'm near you, come and visit.
Where are you coming to New England?
I'm going to be at Krippalo in the Berkshires.
Nice. Oh, we got to make a trip to that.
Yeah, that would be good. I actually had it booked at that place, and it was when COVID happened. So I almost was there and saw you.
First time I've been back there since pre-COVID.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Paul.
Thank
Thank you for having me. Take good care.
Sending love to everybody.